Paratransit and the ADA. So many years ago, the ADA was written. 1990, it told public transit entities, hey, you guys, it's a civil right for everybody to be able to use public transit. So for those people who, because of a condition that they have in their body or mind, who cannot get to the bus stop, you need to come up with a service that treats them the same way as everybody else. Now, RTD treats this as an unfunded mandate. Well, that in itself is discrimination. It's against the civil rights, because it's equal treatment for everybody. And so figure out how to fund it in a way that you're treating it the exact same way as paratransit, as fixed route. There's a condition in the law that talks about the eligibility process for who gets to ride this thing called paratransit. The substantive eligibility process is not aimed at making a medical or diagnostic determination. While evaluation by a physician or professionals in rehabilitation or other relevant fields may be used as part of the process, a diagnosis of a disability is not dispositive. What is needed is a determination of whether, as a practical matter, the individual can use fixed route transit in his or her own circumstances. Now, here's my translation of the Legalese. The meaningful eligibility process, in other words, is not devoid of thought or intention. The meaningful eligibility process is not aimed at making a medical nor diagnostic determination. This is because transit entity agencies are not medical doctors, okay? While evaluation by a physician may be used, and it should be the person who gets to choose to use their medical team to speak to their needs. This will make more sense later. As an important part of their own process, a diagnosis of a disability is not necessarily a final say. What is needed is a determination of whether, as a practical matter, like a no-duh kind of thing, the individual can use fixed route transit in their own circumstances. The most important phrase here legally is as a practical matter, like a no-duh kind of thing. The second most important phrase here is in their own circumstances. Paratransit was created to give people with disabilities a chance at community life. The Olmsted decision of the Supreme Court works in concert with paratransit based on the same root reasoning. Community living cancels people feeling invalid as invalids. In other words, people who are not able to be in the community, their health declines and their death rate is much higher at a younger age because they just feel invalid. They're invalids. Paratransit should be obvious for many types of disabilities. Invisible disabilities may also be included in paratransit if the need can be displayed. Imagine a person with a diagnosis for autism. If RTD said all people with autism get paratransit, that would be a huge mistake. Autism is a spectrum condition, like so many others. I've been tested for autism and tested positive. But my autism does not make it impossible for me to walk down the street, catch a bus, and get to my destination unscathed. Someone with more impactful autism might not be able to walk to the end of the street. This person gets paratransit. Autism is one example of an invisible condition. The eligibility test would therefore enfold this person into paratransit, where without the eligibility test they might have been missed. If a person who is blind applies for paratransit in Denver, they're given unconditional use. Why? It's a practical matter of fact. There we go to that practical matter. The person cannot navigate the city safely. Now, there are some people with blindness who navigate the city just fine. In communities that are not Denver, when a person with no legs requests the use of paratransit, they're given unconditional use. Why? It's a practical matter of fact. The person cannot navigate the city safely. They can get on their bum and maybe scoot down the driveway, assuming they have good arms, or arms they can use, rather. RTD and Easter Seals employees have predetermined they will deny access to paratransit to one group of people, people with no legs or no use of their legs. This started at a particular season of a former year when many employees at RTD, people who worked hard to make life more difficult for people with disabilities, decided they needed to save money and transport fewer people on paratransit. Multiple First Transit employees and supervisors gave me firsthand knowledge of this goal. Save money, transport fewer people. First Transit spoke loudly to RTD about this false reasoning. First Transit is the call center for Accessoride. First Transit employees are confronted on a daily basis by people wanting to go somewhere, but because they cannot use their legs, they cannot use paratransit. First Transit has to listen to people crying, to people yelling, to the sadness. So First Transit repeatedly spoke to RTD about how this was wrong, but RTD ignored it. To save money, RTD's first target is anyone without the use of their legs. RTD has not yet made this decision for other groups of disabilities. Targeting one special group of disability is a double discrimination. One, because they're disabled, and two, filtering out a particular disability. A power chair is not the test. When people read between the lines of the law, they can insert power chair as a part of the person's own circumstances. But is that a correct assertion? Let's look up back here at the law. The individual can use fixed route transit in his or own circumstances. And so what they're doing is they're putting a power chair right here, calling that the person's circumstances. A power chair is not the test. When people read in between the lines, they can insert power chair as part of the person's own circumstances. But is that a correct assertion? Anyone who puts power chair as a person's own circumstance is being myopic to the test at one location chosen by the transit entity. That's what they do. They take you to a place and they say, okay, demonstrate your use of this power chair. Wait a minute. Is that what the eligibility is about? Is that what own circumstances regards? The power chair? They're not seeing plainly the practical matter that the person's legs do not work. That's the practical matter part. For a moment, let's forget the lack of legs and focus on the mechanical chair, which I believe is unlawful. The transit entity cannot know, A, the physical or mental pain in driving a chair, the dangers all over the city when using that chair, if the user prefers a particular different method each day, to ambulate, and even last minute to change their mind. Are they going to wear prosthetics? Are they going to use a manual chair, crutches, walker, scooter, power chair, smart drive? And D, the city's not set up for wheelchairs. Neither from the sidewalk to the bus stops to the enforcement of parking and snow laws. In my neighborhood, people park on the sidewalk all the time. RTD is denying hundreds of people There we go. RTD is denying hundreds of people each year access to Access-a-Ride based on the person not having use of their legs. Next up, if a blind person gets a service animal, they shall be denied paratransit. If someone with severe autism gets a helmet that blocks all sound and visual sensory, but safely navigates the person through the city, they're going to be denied paratransit. If a person is disabled without use of their legs and they own a car, they should be denied paratransit. I mean, this just goes on and on and on and on. There's no end to what RTD and Easter Seals are doing. The document was from the general manager of RTD in January of 2020. And it said they proudly had denied hundreds of people access to paratransit. Oh, they gave them conditional access, but if you look at the details of what that conditional access is, it virtually means no access. And they said they did it lawfully, but they did not cite any laws in that document. Instead, what they did was go to a circular of the FTA. Now, the ADA trumps the FTA every day of the week. And this circular is certainly misinformed. And I believe that with subpoenas, we would find out that RTD's own Ed Newberg put that circular language in, because it is circular, into the circular, that talks about people with power chairs just don't need paratransit. Yeah, right. So there was no legal basis for their decision. And yet Zami Silva, the civil rights director, is discriminating against persons with disabilities and targeting. Zami Silva, the civil rights director, is targeting people who cannot use their legs. Imagine that. A civil rights director